Wednesday, and you know what that means. It's time for the Greg Cherry Show with our special guest, the natural, Astrid Pizarro. Yes! She's on the show. Hi, Astrid. How are you?
Welcome.
Thank you.
Very much appreciated for you to be on here. Maddie Laws, of course, joining me, as always. Real quick stuff before we get on with this interview. I'm sure you see the QR code in the corner of the screen. No, that is not related to Uncle Howdy or any of the Wyatt Sticks. That is actually one of Jeff's friends recently passed away at the age of 36. I believe 36.
Way too young.
Definitely way too young. That's younger than I am now. So go support him and his family. Click on that QR code, scan that QR code, and help somebody out, because it's never a good time to lose somebody, but especially that young. So, Astrid, you work for a number of different outlets. You've done a lot of good stuff. For those who aren't aware of the work that you do, the interviews that you do, please explain a little bit about what you do in the wrestling media sphere.
Well, one of the first things I do with Body Slam is my series Astrid Asked. I used to be a part of Love Wrestling when I was there, and then I kind of became independent for a bit. But I decided to team up with Cassidy to do it on Body Slam. It's mostly focusing on women's wrestling. So any women, whether they're content creators, referees, ring announcers, backstage interviewers, wrestlers, of course. So, and that's my priority when it comes to like my interviews. Other than that, I do a lot of post shows. So I do have an NXT post show that I cover obviously on Tuesdays after NXT, and I do writing with Body Slam as well. So it depends on what I do, but I like to do a little bit of everything.
That's awesome. We've done a couple shows on the topic of women's wrestling, specifically full shows about that. And women's wrestling still to this day, for a section of the audience, and I don't even know if you could call them like big fans or if they're just people living in the past. But women's wrestling is so important to not just wrestling now, but like wrestling from years ago. Seeing as much women's wrestling as we are seeing is just beyond incredible.
Yeah.
What are your opinions on the current state of women's wrestling?
I feel like it has progressed a lot. Obviously, there's still moments that you think like it could do a little bit more than what we're doing, because we only have maybe no women's or maybe one women's match on the card. But it still has progressed a lot from those like mud matches and brown panties and things like that. I feel like it gives a little bit more importance now to what we have. And now that they have championships, I feel like they have something to fight for, aside from just having like regular matches for like no reason whatsoever. And not only that, but they give them mostly a lot of time. It's better than those 2 to 3 minute matches we used to get. Like I said, those team matches is another thing, and they get to be the main event now, which I love to see. Just like it's not often that they get to be the main event, but when they do get it, it's because it has more of a reason to, and I enjoy that more than anything now, because it's not often when you get it, but when you see it, it's like, oh, they earned it. They are the main event. If you don't put them the main event, they'll show you why they should have been the main event, because we've seen that happen too.
Mm-hmm.
Matt,
keeping on that topic, you mentioned, women are main eventing pay-per-views, WrestleManias, etc. What would you say was what brought you to the dance? What is your reasoning for loving professional wrestling the way that you do? Because it was very hard for women's wrestling to get off the ground back then. So is there a women's match from back then that drew you in, or is there, history to this?
I would say it's a little bit of two things, because being that I am from Puerto Rico, my grandpa used to watch like wrestling, especially from the
Puerto Rican heritage.
Yeah, so for I think it's WCCW. I think I always forget one of the letters. I used to like listen to it while he was watching it, even though I didn't watch it because I wasn't interested in that particular, the way they did everything. Mm-hmm. But when I moved here to the US, though, I started watching it more with my dad, because we only have one TV. I don't know if I couldn't change the channel. Maybe that's why I just listened to it. I don't know what happened back then, to be honest. But I remember just watching Raw very often. I kept asking questions. I was very interested in everything that was happening at the moment. And I think what drew me in at that moment was a lot of like having Eddie Guerrero and his storylines and Rey Mysterio, and me asking silly questions to understand what was happening. Like I remember, like I asked him about when Lita had the baby and she lost it. I was like literally almost crying because I was thinking, oh, she lost the baby. And he's like, no, it's not real. It's this and that. And it's like, so he definitely just took that illusion out of me. But it's still like the storylines interested me at that time. And I didn't like what was happening for the ladies, but I was still like I had hope something else would happen. And around that time, though, it's when my dad is a big Sting fan. So being that Sting moved to TNA at that time. So we started watching TNA because of Sting at that time too. And we realized that we're actually here in Orlando taping. So we ended up going to a few tapings and pay-per-views there. So that drew me into there. And I like what they were doing with the ladies at that moment. So that's what drew me in more than anything. At the moment, the knockouts were doing incredible. They still are, don't get me wrong. But that was like, for me, like my introduction to how women are now, to put it like that. And it just kept going from there. But I think TNA is definitely the reason why I kept like sticking to women's wrestling, because I kept thinking it's like, this is what I want to see. And I kept watching it as I could and just going to the local shows whenever they came here. I think if you probably look up like the older episodes, you can probably see me by the steel steps just taking pictures, even though my pictures were terrible for some reason. So that's what I used to do in TNA.
Well, you brought up, the Knockouts division, and the Knockouts division is incredibly important to how mainstream women's wrestling is now. If it wasn't for Gail Kim, Awesome Kong, ODB, and them, we wouldn't have, I guess, as much push as we have for them now. I mean, it's incredible what they did back then with how little time they had. Because even then, I think the longest women's match back then was like 30 minutes, and that was Kong versus Gail Kim. Mm-hmm. So it's an incredible like jumping off point for a lot of people. So you said it was back in Puerto Rico that you got, the fascination with it. When you came to the States, it kind of lit a fire under you. What would you say was your favorite match from when you were younger?
I don't remember anything from the Puerto Rico ones because I remember just listening to my grandpa watching it, and especially commentary is what I kept listening more than anything. But it just like those like women's matches, especially like you said, like Awesome Kong and Gail Kim, that really drew me in. And even like I think it was Brooke, if I'm not mistaken, and Taryn Terrell was another one that just in the girls.
Terrell, fantastic.
Yeah. Having some hard-hitting matches with like so many, like I want to say gimmick matches, but they were not usual bra and panties or anything like that. They actually were like hardcore matches. And I think those were the ones that really like drew my attention. But anything involving like on WWE side was anything with Eddie and Ray around that time. It was one of those things that I just, there's nobody that does storytelling like Eddie. And that was one thing that always, it came up, like it stood out to me.
I hate to cut Greg off because I know we usually do 2 questions a turn. But Puerto Rican heritage coming from there. Damian Priest is a world heavyweight champion. What was the household like when he won?
Ironically, when it was happening, when the Drew and Punk interaction was happening, I started screaming. I said, "Oh my God, Damian cash in, Damian cash in!" And I jumped from my couch. I think my family got shook when I started. Like I was like shaking because I had a feeling it was gonna happen, and they were making fun of me for it. And then when his music came out, I was like, I had one of the pillows like on top of me. He's like, I'm gonna scream if he loses. I'm just ready because I had a feeling he was gonna lose for some reason. And then watching him do that, and when he got the 1, 2, 3, and he raised the championship, but I started crying. I cried. I took a picture of myself crying, and I posted it on Twitter, and I ended up on the bump because of it.
You're not alone. The Crew Day clipped it of me crying into my brother's arms, so it was an awesome moment.
Yeah, it really was.
Now you mentioned being a fan of Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. Obviously, 2 of the best workers of all time, best storytellers of all time. Which match of theirs really stands out to you? Everybody likes to talk about the Halloween Havoc match. They talk about the series of matches they had, even the custody of Dominic ladder match. Which Ray had said in an interview, I don't remember who it was with. I want to say it was either Malcolm or Chris Van Vliet. I can't remember who said that if he knew how Dominic would have turned out, he would have just let Eddie keep him.
Yeah. I remember seeing that clip too. I never thought somebody would ask him that, and that was a good question, to be honest.
It was. Which of those matches stand out to you the most?
I think that one with Dominic did because I really liked seeing the family being involved in it because still I was naive at that moment, so I didn't know it was obviously all like fake it, like quote unquote fake at that time. But to see like the family being involved and like Vicky being there and begging him, and then having Dominic come out, like having all the family come out at that one aspect or not, it's definitely what made me like, oh, this is cool. I like the family like trying to defend each other in this sort of way. So I think that's definitely what that one that really stood out to me. And just seeing that, like even now, years later, seeing just the picture, the promo picture they used for that match, I can't believe that Dominic is here now versus this is the kid that I was watching when I was younger.
He really hasn't like aged at all either in the face.
No, his face is the same. It just obviously is taller now.
Got them chubby cheeks still.
So going back to the topic of women's wrestling, I mean, looking just at women's wrestling in the last 10 years, since it's really changed, what women in particular have stood out to you as really what bring women's wrestling to the forefront? And not in the mid card, not in the lower card, but really towards the spotlight where they belong.
Oh, I feel like for me, if I were to say like, for example, with TNA, like we mentioned people like Gil Kim that really brought it to like the forefront in that aspect. I feel like TNA doesn't get enough credit. Oh, those are my friends. Pray for wrestling. I feel like like the ladies from TNA don't get enough credit for. To me, like I don't want to say starting it because it's hard to give credit to somebody, but like I want to say we're like really pushing it, to put it like that. For me, also just the girls like the Bella Twins is like thinking of it. Even though I'm not a fan of them personally, but what I can say they have done a lot for women's wrestling, and they've done a lot about bringing a different audience. Because even now, a lot of the like girls that are starting now are saying that they started watching because of Total Divas and Total Bellas. So as I think about it, they hadn't done the show. Who else? These girls have never been inspired to even like join wrestling somehow. So I say the Bellas are big ones. And I think the Four Horsewomen are also like another huge one for me, because how many of them don't have what we call daughters at this point because they got influenced by them to join in. And another one for me is AJ Lee for sure. That's another one that I see a lot of people always bringing up of like she inspired me of like how different she was to like really stand out that way and bring wrestling, women's wrestling to like a different site.
Oh, absolutely solid choices. Maddie, go ahead.
All right, so we're going to stick with women's wrestling, but I want to move more towards the media side since you cover, for Body Slam and stuff like that. Cassidy Haynes, I've heard, is an incredible person, but what I want to ask is now in this day and age, it is so hard for women's media to be validated in anything just because, you're females. And I absolutely hate that. So how do you deal with the backlash that goes towards women in the wrestling media sphere or sports media sphere for that matter? And how do you deflect that and just keep going about your day?
Well, I can say at least from my end, I've been fortunate enough that I haven't had to deal with any kind of backlash like that, of like people kind of giving me hate because I'm a lady watching wrestling or anything like that. I feel like I do, like in general, I just want to see more women covering it, to put it like that. Like whenever and there's any kind of show, I want to see at least one woman being part of that show, whether it's like a prediction show, post show, whatever it is. And I want to see more women interviewing women. I feel like that's something like you can ask some kind of different questions that I feel like the guys won't be able to, and bring it a different kind of point of view on it. So I definitely want to see that kind of thing happening. At least I haven't had anybody tell me anything because I'm a female covering it, which I'm thankful for, because I know I wouldn't be able to like deal with anybody giving me that kind of negativity. I would crawl in a corner and not be able to do this ever again, to be honest. But no, I had really a lot of people that have been grateful. Like I'm grateful for them because they're always telling me, it's like, no, I love like your voice and I love the people that you bring up to our shows and things like that. So I like what you're doing. Like I mentioned it when I was with Kate doing the Ring of Honor show last week as well. I have people like Cassidy. I wrote my first piece on Body Slam was what I want to see from the AEW women's division. And at that point, it's when we had before Mercedes came out and everybody else. So it was like, we didn't have a lot of matches. They barely had time. It was always at the 9:30 slot. All these things that I brought up. And as I was writing it, I messaged him and I said, should I be writing this though? Because I feel like a lot of people are going to hate on me because it's AW. You know how the fandom goes.
Oh, yeah.
And he just told me, just keep writing it. It'll be fine. And I was anxious. And when I published it, I was like, I don't even want to look at the comments. So I was afraid for a little while. And then while I was working, I looked at the post and was like, I'm gonna look at it once and then see what happens. And then at least I would say like 90% of it was positive, which made me okay. I'm like, I can look back at it. I won't feel that bad about looking at the post now. And I only had a couple people like kind of hating on it just because that's how it is. But it's something I expected. So I mentally I was preparing myself for that kind of thing. So I think that's the only time that I ever had anybody kind of give me any negative kind of feedback. But it wasn't because of my writing, it's because of like obviously AW is AW. They're doing everything
Tribalism,
right.
yeah.
You know, that's how it is. And I even had to put a note at the beginning of it. I put a disclaimer. I'm like, I'm a fan. I'm not a hater. Just so you know, I'm a fan. I'm just writing this because I'm a woman. I want more for the ladies there. I'm not hating on it because I watched the too. So I was like, I'm not even comparing it too much either. So I think that was the only kind of moment that I've had a little bit of like, and then I feel like at work I'm like hiding because I'm like I don't want to look at anybody because I'm just looking at my phone and looking at the comments. But and I remember when I sent it to Cassidy with the comments, and I was like, oh, I'm here like I'm overwhelmed with the positivity that I've received. And he's like, that's why I wanted you to write it because I knew like not only your friends but my friends will look at it, read it, and think, you know, what you're writing is true. So they're not gonna hate on it. So I think that's the only time that was kind of happened there a little bit.
It's awesome that you've got that support coming from, you know, the higher ups. In terms of support, who else in the IWC has been like, you know, big supporters, you know, I guess the shout outs that you would have for keeping you going?
I definitely know like Cassidy's one of them that whenever I have a dot work, I'm just like, no, just do it. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. It kind of thing. And I even asked him, like, are you going to get any heat for me writing this with AEW? No, he's like, just write it. You'll be fine. So he's been a big one for me. Also, Ella, who I know she's been on here as well before. Ella has been one that when I got media for the Rumble, I told her, like, I'm freaking out. I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'm doing. And we had a call that probably lasted like 2 hours or so, and I wrote down everything of advice she gave me that time, and it really helped me out a lot when I was there because I felt like I came there with a little bit less anxiety knowing what was happening because of her. So she's definitely a big person for me that's been kind of like a mentor in that aspect aside from being a friend as well. And like my friends in the chat, aside from Body Slam, I work with our local establishment. We call ourselves OLE. So in OLE, I do have Ed, Mel, Andre. I have Bobby and also my friend Mike, who's not with OLE, but he's given me opportunities with him there as well. And they have been the kind of people that whenever something happens, I'm like, oh, I'm so happy for you. You're getting to do this and that. So it's always nice to like when something happens that you get all those random messages from the people that you know in your life because they're so happy you're getting these opportunities and to see you shine because they feel like they're shine too when it happens.
Now, back to you, Greg.
You mentioned talking with Ella. You mentioned working the post show with Kate last week. Is there anybody? Yeah, is there anybody in the wrestling media sphere that you have not worked with yet that would be either a dream for you to work with or one day you hope would work with? Is there anybody that comes to mind?
Oh my gosh, how much time do we have?
Listen, I get that answer too.
Yeah, that I can think on top of my head. I definitely have people like Joel Pearl from Fightful is one I've been wanting to do. I keep forgetting. I don't want to forget his name, but I'll remember a little bit later. I feel like him and somebody like Weezy Blonde. I like her personality and what she does with her shows too. And Miss Thickums, I know I love her streams too when she's gaming. So that's another one I really want to do. Alex, Queen of the Ring, it's another one I've been wanting to work with. Shoot, I'm forgetting. I'm hate that I'm forgetting his name. He's gonna hate me later for forgetting his name.
Does he? We might be able to help. Where does
he's the one that does with Joel Pearl. He does one of the shows with him.
Lambert?
Lambert, yeah, Lambert. There you go.
Yeah, he's been with
Jeremy Lambert.
Yeah.
Fellow Denver Broncos fan.
Yeah. He's definitely gonna hate me later for this. But anyway, I feel like those are the ones. I worked with Ella a couple of times, but I get to work with her quite often. So that's one that I get to do quite often there too. Shoot, I'm trying to think of who else right now. But I think those are and then it's Sean Ross Sapp because I feel like definitely would like to, even though I met him face to face because I was there for the Rumble, but I would like to do just a show with him because I haven't been able to do that yet. I think
he's a delight.
Yeah, he's very very nice. And I had Kate on my list, but I already did a show with her not so long ago, so that helped and took her off the list now, thankfully. Um, but yeah, there's other ones that really come to mind that I met, for example, Alex Spino the Ring. I met her at the Rumble too, but I haven't been able to do like a show with her. So I would like to like work with her in that aspect. I haven't been able to. So I think those are the people that I can think of like on top of my head right now, at least.
Okay.
Hopefully, I didn't forget anybody.
So in the realm of the wrestling media sphere, what are your goals as far as potentially growing your channel? Do you want to do more reviews? Do you want to do more interviews? I know you've interviewed some talent, um, but what is your ultimate goal as far as your YouTube channel?
Well, I definitely want to grow my YouTube channel because it's something that I've been little by little working on, but it's difficult at the same time having a full-time job and be able to do this on the side and have time for it, like the energy, to be honest. So that's definitely one thing. I definitely want to keep growing that kind of audience within myself and within the brand OLE. That's something that I've been wanting to do. When it comes to interviews, I like to do at least one per month. That's always like my kind of like my goal. So I always try to do at least 10 to 12 just because the last 2 months I always hectic at work with my holiday schedule. So I kind of count them out a little bit there. But I try to do 10 to 12. One of my bigger goals is also to do media for WrestleMania. I did the Rumble because it was close to home, so I could just drive there and it was nice. But I want to do, I've been to WrestleMania as a fan, but I want to do it as media and be able to do that press conference afterwards because I was
You gonna
there for
try
the
to get to
Rumble.
Vegas?
I'm hoping I booked my hotel, so we see how that goes.
Here's hoping. Let's get Astrid to Vegas.
I'm like I'll keep like praying and manifesting that hopefully it'll happen because I did the Rumble because it was close to home and I could just be there in like a few hours. But I didn't get to do the press conference, which is the other thing that I wanted to do. So that's still on my list to do. But to be able to do like the media junket and all that stuff, it was the first time I did anything like that. So I'm glad I had Cassidy there too, because he's like, I'm not do. He's like, I don't even know what I'm doing either. I'm like, okay, I'm glad we're both together on this, and we don't know what we're doing, but it's nice to have the people that at least I know face to face there, and I call them the boss man. It's like, okay, I'm like, my boss man's right here. I'm fine because I'm not alone really, and it's nice that I get to meet the people like I met like online, but in real life, and I want to meet more of them. So that's why I want to do WrestleMania there. I feel like it has more opportunities to meet everybody else that we know.
Right. I'm going to jump you, Maddie, with one other question in relation to the wrestling media junket, because I'm talking about doing it for SummerSlam. Because SummerSlam is only a couple-hour drive for me, and yes, it's in Cleveland, and I'm a Pittsburgh fan, but hey, that's another story. What advice would you give to somebody doing something like that? Because I'm sure it's an intimidating thing going in there, seeing a whole bunch of other interviews, seeing a bunch of wrestlers that you've either never met or only like talked to online. What are the differences, and what would somebody who's never done it before have to look forward to?
And to kind of build off of that, do they have any like? Because in the like the most recent news, it's been that one reporter that was told that was a dumb question to ask. Are there any guidelines that they put you through before you do the media questions to build off of Greg's question?
Well, I wasn't part of the press conference. So I don't know if they get any kind of communication when it comes to that part. But at least for me, it's just like a matter of like, here's the events that we have for the week. Sign up for what you want to cover, kind of thing, and you sign up for whatever you want. And I never saw any guidelines of what to ask and what not to ask. So I was really in the future, if they want something like that, they should send in an email to other people that are going to the event of like, these are the topics that are like off limits, kind of thing. That's what I would do, at least for them. But from my perspective, I would say look up older like media junkets to get an idea of what it's like. And that's what I like to do whenever somebody says, "Oh, I want to." And if I said I want to interview this wrestler, I start looking up their interviews that whether it's YouTube or audio. I try to look it up somehow and get an idea of what they're like, and sometimes I listen to those questions and I get creative and I think of other questions based on those. So I would say that kind of thing. For me, another thing will be once you know who's part of the junket, think of questions beforehand, because as I was so nervous, I blinked out on questions, to be honest. And I could have done longer and I didn't. And that's one thing I really regret. But at the same time, I'm glad the ones I did, because I feel like it eased me up and it helped me like kind of get used to what I was doing, thinking of questions on the fly as the interview was happening. I had never done anything like that before. And I would say take it all in. I took a moment that when I was in the room and I didn't have any interviews at that moment, I stood up in the corner where I was And I literally looked around the room and I thought, I've kind of dreamed of being here for a couple years now. To be able to like be here, it just feels like I'm a dream, but I don't want to wake up from it. So I just looked in the room and I'm like, I looked at myself and I said, I belong here. I shouldn't feel bad that I'm here. That kind of thing. And like telling myself positive things as
Oh
I
yeah.
was in the room. And just the fact that I'm like, okay, let me take it all and let me see if how everything looks so I can remember this for next time and I can know what to do again for the next time it happens. So I would say take any opportunity they give you, because they do usually for those papers they have a lot of events. So just any kind of event you can go to and cover, I would do it because it's a good opportunity for you to learn a little bit more and grow as well.
Go ahead, man.
All right. We're gonna take a little veer off road from professional wrestling. Other than wrestling, what other hobbies do you entail? Like, what do you follow? What do you like? Music tastes, the like.
The one thing I like to do, as you can see there, I collect a lot of Funko Pops. So I do have a lot of. I have
The
Eddie.
Funko Pops.
Yeah, I have Eddie there with the lowrider. So I have that one there.
Oh, that's such a great pop.
I have one that I made of myself at the store in California. So if you
That's
get to go,
awesome.
I would recommend making one because you can put anything you want. Well, not anything, but they have options of what you can put in your arms. As you can see, I have like the microphone, the headphones for podcasting, and you can give the details to it. So it's like I get to be a part of my own collection, which is pretty cool too. Um,
That's awesome.
so I do have a lot of Funko Pops. I do have things like from a lot of wrestling ones and different fandoms. From what I can see, like looking at it from here, I have like Disney ones. I have like Gilmore Girls and Supernatural. Like a little bit of the shows that I like. I have the people that I like. I don't collect everybody because I feel like that would be too much, and I wouldn't be able to keep up with them either. But I do have a lot of wrestling ones, so that's my main one. I do have in the back of me right here. I have mostly the Four Horsewomen, and then I have people like Bianca and Liv behind me that I like to keep there. And I have also the Jurassic Park are the bigger ones, like the scene ones. I do like the bigger ones too. So I even collect those too. Um, Aside from that, I do a lot of reading too. I do a lot of reading and book reviews. So that's another thing I do aside from the wrestling stuff. So I work with publishers and with authors to promote their books and things like that. So I've gotten paid to do that sometimes. So I've done that as a hobby slash I don't want to say job, but sort of thing. But I've been able to do that, and it's pretty cool. It's kind of similar to like wrestling media in that aspect, is the fact that I get authors like reaching out to me when the publisher's like, hey, I have this book, I want you to like post about it, would you like to do something like that, and we collaborate with each other in that sort of way. When it comes to music though, I'm a big Swiftie. I sorry if anybody hates her,
Big
I really don't
Swifty.
care. I went to the Eras tour. That's the first time I ever saw her live. I'm still paying for it, but I had to go because I knew it was the only opportunity. And ironically, I survived what I call the Great War of Ticketmaster to be able to get tickets, not only for myself, but my three sisters to be able to go there. So
You got 4 tickets.
four tickets in one swoop. So yeah, and that was one of those that it was on my bucket list to watch her live. And well, my sisters love her, so we decided to all go together and make a weekend out of it. I enjoyed it. It's like sometimes
I
my
was about to
sisters say, I
say,
yeah,
the
it was
big
one of
question.
those
It was worth it,
amazing.
right?
Oh, it definitely was. Yeah, I definitely want. I wish I could do it all over again. But it's funny because my sisters are so young. They're like, I feel like I don't remember what happened. I'm like, well, thank God you have videos of it to remember it later. But
So
it was.
was it her stage performance or was it just being there that was the whole vibe?
It's a little bit of both because I've been listening to her since her second album and I never got to see her live in any way, shape, or form. Like I never tried because I knew it would be difficult with Ticketmaster
Hmm.
to be able to get any tickets whatsoever. So that was the first thing, and just like not only that, but like being there and be able to like sing all the songs with my sisters and like seeing. And one thing I love about her show is that it's not only the music, but it's also like the dancing and the choreography has like a message to it, and she has graphics in the background, and you never know what Easter eggs she's giving you. So it's always like it's a whole thing of like paying attention to
That's
every
so.
single detail, and I love that.
All right, Greg.
Um, other than being a big Swifty, um, and you mentioned a couple shows. You mentioned Gilmore Girls, Supernatural, kind of in like the CW realm of TV. Um, what other things interest you that might not have anything to do with wrestling whatsoever?
Mm. Another thing, well, I guess a big one that people don't really think about when they see me is like I love horror movies a lot. So I love any kind of horror movie I can watch, and if I can get it like physical media, I would definitely buy it. My biggest ones are the Scream movies. I love the Scream movies so much. I have so many Ghostface things. My parents think it's weird, but I really don't care at this point. But it's like I get the Funko Pop and I have like the backpack and the keychain. And the funny thing is, like when I have like Christmas and my birthday, I have my friends giving me literal like Ghostface stuff because they
Oh,
know how
that's
much
so
I love
cool.
it. So I have that, and I have like my backpack with Ghostface. So it's
You
shirts,
had that
everything
at
is
the
different.
ready. That was awesome.
Yeah, I'm using the AirPods, so it's like I have them right here. But yeah, it's a lot of Ghostface stuff that I really enjoy. So anything that I can see with it, I buy it because like I tell my family, there was a moment in time that there was nothing Ghostface, and all of a sudden it started popping up more often. So whenever I see something, I have to get it because you never know when you're gonna see it again.
It's true. And I feel like, especially like in the wrestling community, a lot of people in the wrestling community like horror movies. I am not one of
Mhm.
them. I
Really?
personally, no, I'm not a fan of them, and I think it's because like my imagination gets kind of warped with like watching stuff like that, and like I think of like it just messes with me in a way that I can't explain. So I try
I
to
think I think I'm a little messed up then, Greg,
Not even
because
during the daytime, maybe that helps. No.
well, what? So you said Scream is your or like the Scream franchise is your favorite. Let me.
Yeah,
My favorite horror franchise is the Hostel series.
I watched it, but it's not my favorite though. I
I
enjoyed
am
it
so
though.
here. I like grindhouse horror. So I am very very morbid when it comes to that. So
Mhm.
yeah, but like you said, a lot of wrestling fans seem to be fans of the horror genre
Mhm.
and stuff like that. It's just weird to see horror being your main takeaway while also being a Swiftie.
Hey, it's a little bit
do
of
you, do
everything.
you do you follow any sports outside of professional wrestling?
Uh, Not really. I only watched the Super Bowl because I know that Travis was part of it and Taylor was too, and my sisters and I would decided to
How
just
dare
have a laugh about it. We're
how
like,
dare you,
we're just gonna
Astrid?
cheer for Taylor's boyfriend here. No, I know who he is. I no, but aside from that, it's just wrestling. Really. I I may watch a couple clips here and there from my family's watching, and they watch anything, but it's rare than they're watching something different. So, yeah.
I'm not ready for the schedule release.
I've seen, and we'll divert back into the conversation in a second. I've seen some rumors stuff where the Steelers don't play a divisional game till after their bye week in the middle of the season.
I hate that. I hate that for you guys.
I hate that for us too, because that's 6 games in a span of 10 that are all divisional games. It's some of them back to back to back. So anyway, off topic.
So Super Bowl is the only sport. The Super Bowl is the only sport that you keep up with outside of professional wrestling. So let's veer this back into professional wrestling. How many shows have you seen live?
Um, it's kind of hard to count it, but I know I've been to 4, maybe 5 WrestleManias. I always lose count. I know I've been to Orlando, Miami, New Orleans, Jersey. I think that's it, if I'm
Okay.
not mistaken.
Oh wow, you traveled
Um,
quite a bit for the Jersey one, huh?
yeah. I went to like almost like the WrestleManias almost in a row, and I was gonna go to Tampa when the pandemic happened, so that broke off the little record I had. So I stopped trying afterwards. Um, and after that, I just it's hard to count it because I used to go to the TNA tapings, but I don't know how many of those I went to. I used to go to TNA tapings. I went to a pay per view there too. I also went to NXT tapings and an NXT takeover. I think like once or twice, if I'm not mistaken, there too. Um, I'm trying to remember who else I've seen. Oh, and I went to the Ring of Honor tapings when they did it in Orlando when Ring of Honor got like revamped with TK. So yeah, it's hard to count how many, but I know I've been to at least those shows.
Yeah, when people tell me how many wrestling shows they've been to, I feel like such a slacker because I can probably count on like both hands how many I've been to, and that's not counting
I
independents.
can
'Cause, like,
count on one hand.
yeah, Denver doesn't get a whole lot of shows.
We don't get shit, Greg.
Yeah, I lost count, so I can't go back.
I have been to 2 Royal Rumbles and a Civic Center Raw.
Oh, I forgot the Rumble too. Yeah, I forgot. I'm like thinking about it. I covered it, but I went to the Rumble.
I can say though, Devin and I will be going to the AEW show for Dynamite and Rampage in Loveland, Colorado. So that'll happen.
Yeah, I haven't been
We
to
should be on
AW
the.
yet.
Devin also said we'll be on the floor, so you might see my stupid ass in a robe on air.
Nice.
Nice. I know I've been to a Royal Rumble. I've been to WrestleMania Miami. I've been to a SummerSlam. I'm going to
You're going to another.
And, an occasional Raw, SmackDown, and a couple of AEW shows.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of independents.
Mm-hmm.
So I was about to say, on the topic of shows that you've been to, what is the best live match you have ever seen? Like, what match had you off your seat the entire time?
I think one that really kept me at the edge of my seat was definitely Bailey and Sasha for the Iron Woman match at NXT Takeover. I think that was definitely one of them that I just remember being like, "Holy crap! I don't know what else they're gonna do here," and I just felt like I wouldn't know how else they were gonna top it aside from that. I'm trying to remember what other matches I've seen, and I think definitely one that I enjoyed, and it's gonna be like a little bit like out of it, but I think the Rumble this year with the ladies, I feel like they did very well with it. It just reminded me how it started at the beginning, having like those surprises, and I like there were surprises that a lot of people didn't know of, like having Jordan Grace come up. I lost my voice when that happened, and then like Naomi returning, and so many surprises that I loved. And that's the reason why I wanted to go to Rumble. Just thinking of those surprises that we usually don't get in most pay-per-views. I was like, I want to have that feel because we don't know who's coming out next. So I think
Nothing
that's
really
another
is
one.
quite like a live Rumble.
No, it really isn't.
Josh brought up that he's been to 3 live events, a Raw after Rumble, Payback, SmackDown, and will be going to SummerSlam this year, but plus 2 indie shows.
Yeah.
Astrid, Prairie Pro Wrestling has been in our chat. Is that the indie wrestling that you will promote while you're here, or is there other shows that you would like to promote as well?
No, Prairie's my friend there in Canada. Hopefully, I will. I don't know if I'll be able to go when I see them. Hopefully, but no, I haven't been to like. I want to go to the indie show. That's definitely something on my list to do on like in town. I haven't been able to do that yet because it's kind of far, and I usually work the next day, so I can't do that to myself. But I definitely want to go to one that I have nearby, so I'm thinking about it. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully, be able to meet somebody there because I definitely don't want to go alone. That's one thing. It's like a female going to a wrestling show. It's a big no. So I'm always hesitant to go for that. But I definitely have an indie show that I want to go to at least this year because I haven't been able to do that yet.
Okay. Back to you, Greg.
So I'm sure you've been invited on a number of different shows. Are there any shows that you had to turn down for whether it was you didn't feel comfortable doing it, not necessarily a timing issue because we all have those, or you just thought the person was super weird? I guess that's the best way to put it.
This isn't going to have you calling them out. This is just broad spectrum.
I'm trying to remember, but I think it's mostly been not turning them down, but like finding a timing to do it because I have a full-time job, as we call like a shoot job. So it's kind of hard for me to be like, yeah, I'll be home by this time to be able to do it. And usually I have to try to do weekend shows because of that. It's a little bit easier when I'm off from work. I think there was maybe one time that I don't know if I turned it down, but it was one of those like, it was kind of collaboration they wanted to do with our brand and OLE. And knowing the people that I know, I sent a message to somebody. I'm like, do you know this person and what they're like? And when I got the feedback back, I was like, yeah, we're definitely not doing that because it doesn't align with our views and what we have. And to me, if it doesn't align with our views and all of a sudden somebody watches our show and they think, oh, they definitely agree with them then because they're working together. And if you're obviously going against something that I'm like highlighting, like let's say, for example, somebody was to be misogynistic, to give an example, and I'm here highlighting women's wrestling, I would not be working with them because that goes against what I'm doing right now. So it's like it kind of cancels each other in that sort of way. So that's what I tend to look at. And like if I see that your views don't align with mine, I definitely won't be like doing anything together like that. So it just depends. And I'm glad I know people enough that I'm like, hey, I got a message from this person. Have you done a show with them before? They're like, yeah, they're like this, and just so you know, I'm like, okay, never mind. I'm just gonna be like, I'm okay. So it doesn't happen often, but yeah, it's happened.
Yeah, there's still way too much misogyny in pro wrestling, sports media sphere. It's disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah,
I don't get it. Like it doesn't make any sense to me. And maybe that's because like I find compassion in like not compassion, that's not the word I'm looking for, but like I look for the best in people. And like I try and see positivity like wherever I can find it. Women's wrestling right now, and it has been for a while now, is amazing. So I don't understand like if you like wrestling, why don't you like this? It's like,
I mean, your favorite wrestler all time is Sasha Banks, my guy. Like,
not all time. Favorite women's wrestler of all time.
damn near.
Damn near. I think she's very much a female version of me. I can see that kind of versatility.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things. It's like if you like wrestling, what's wrong with women's wrestling? There's nothing wrong with it. It's like if you hate them because
Sometimes
they
they
won't sleep
outshine.
with you, that's on you. Quit being a terrible person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it happens, and not only that, or even like for example, I saw the Sky Blue coming up on the chat there too, and just like it's one of
Oh
those
yeah,
things that happened to Sky Blue. Let's
pull that one up.
Yeah, I think it happened a little bit earlier that I saw towards the
I
beginning.
got you. Every brand
There you
needs a
go.
Sky Blue.
Yeah, so that made me think of like the situation that she went through, and just like thinking of like the people that go to those shows just to be able to shout stuff at the ladies, and just like
It's disgusting. It even happened to Billy Starks at an indie show not too long ago.
yeah,
And
that's kind of thing. And yeah, that's the kind of thing that I don't stand for. And even when they look at the shows and they're like, oh look, the girls are wearing this, and they like highlight or over sexualize them. It's like, that's not what their job is. So it's like that's the thing that makes me like once I hear anything that has to do anything related to that, I'm like, I'm out. This is not my thing. I'm definitely not watching this again.
It's
if a guy wants
horrible,
to
the treatment
on women being sexy and stuff just for that sole purpose, they go to a strip club or watch something online. Don't come to a public place where people are entertaining you and are likely way more athletic than you are, and
putting their bodies on the line.
They are. There have been career-ending injuries that have happened in the ring, and like if they don't have that kind of respect, then they don't need to go to wrestling shows. You can't call yourself a wrestling fan if you're going to just sexually harass people. Who does that?
Yeah, Corey.
Astrid has been one of. Hey, Corey Michaels is in the chat.
What's up, Corey? Good to see you.
Astrid has been one of the strongest proponents of women's wrestling, and I'm glad everyone is seeing it. So glad to see her on here. Well, thank you, Corey.
Absolutely. And we love having her on because we love wrestling.
I do have one question for Astrid. I know we've got like 15 minutes left.
Yeah.
But what in professional wrestling do you think has the best women's roster going today?
Oh, I feel like that's tough because I feel like I like a little bit of everything that we've seen. But I think one that people don't mention in that sort of light often is NXT. Like I watch NXT often, and it's nice to see those ladies like growing, and to the point that if you watch NXT, if you really pay attention, they do 2 to 3 women's matches in a 2-hour show. It's like a lot of people can learn from that, and I do love the fact that
stories.
Yes, that was about to be my second point. They do so many stories that don't involve the championship, and I feel like that doesn't happen often on other shows. And it's nice to see so many other stories happening at the same time. Where we have a champion and another one to be crowned pretty soon as well. So even with basically 2 championships here, we still have so many non-title feuds going on at the same time, and like everything's interconnected like that. So it's nice to see, and not only that, but I like to see the girls growing. Like when you see them from the start and to see them grow and then go to the main roster and get drafted, and it's just amazing to watch that. that whole process there happening.
And like you said, the people growing. Lash Legend, in my opinion, about a year ago was one of the worst, on-air, in-ring talents that I've seen. What was it? The Iron Woman Survivor that she did? She absolutely proved that over a year and a half, she improved immensely. We've had Thea Hale in NXT since she was 19 years old, and now she's one of the best products that they've put out maybe ever. So I'm with you 100% on NXT. I would also throw out TNA and what they've done with the Knockouts division over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I know lately has been okay with me. I know there's moments I like here and there, so that's a different story. But with NXT is also people like, let's say Bianca. Bianca's one that started from scratch and didn't know how to wrestle. Look at her now, and even Tiffany's threatened. So I think about them as the prime examples of like, if you really put the work in, look how great you can be. And Bianca and Tiffany to me are the examples of that.
Bianca is just otherworldly with the athletic stuff that she can do. I mean, she is probably the most naturally gifted person on the roster. And that's male or female. It doesn't matter. She's just so good. She wrestles circles around pretty much everybody on the roster. She's so good. I don't understand how some people can hate her. I don't find that she has a personality that you could hate.
Even when she was so likable.
Absolutely. I want to be friends with Bianca Belair. That'd be fun.
Right?
Hell, I feel like you could strike up a conversation with Bianca or Montez, and by the end of it, you guys will be legitimate friends.
Absolutely. And then both of them could outlift me.
Both of them could lift you.
Yeah, that too. I'm crying out loud. Bianca carried Otis, who's 100 pounds heavier than me, pretty much 20 feet. So, yeah, she absolutely could.
Yeah.
Warhawk Rampart says, sad WWE is not utilizing Mia Yim well. Isn't Mia Yim Muchin in the NXT Women's North American ladder match? Did she qualify for that?
Yeah.
Or no?
Not yet. The match hasn't happened yet. I think not next week, maybe the week after, I believe.
But I think she's going to get in, correct?
Yeah, I think she's one of those that you definitely have to put her in with the experience that she has.
So, who's in so far? It's Jada Parker and Soul Worker, correct?
No, we have Soul and Lash so far. Next week we'll get 2 more.
Jada Parker absolutely should qualify. For the record, I think she's somebody else.
Yeah, next week we get Jada Parker and Brinley, and then we get Fallon and Thea. So.
Oh, Fallon and Thea, okay.
Yeah. Because I like Fallon Henley, but she's probably not going to win.
They still have so much talent down in NXT. They got Maddie Renkowski down there right now, and she's going to kill it, I think.
I'm just disappointed at how they used her so far. You said her character seems kind of silly right now, and I feel like she's better as a heel, and I want her to like really embrace that. But I'll give it time.
Oh no!
What happens.
What she did in NWA is absolutely insane. Like I was like, I don't know if I can get behind this, and then I saw her work, and I was like, okay, this is a heel that can carry a women's division for about 2 years or so.
Yeah, I definitely want her to have not the same exact character, but something similar of like. Be that type of heel because I feel like she does better as a heel than she does as a face, and so far I don't like how they've been using her, but it's like it's a start, so you never know how it's going to change. Yeah.
We have another comment. Did you highlight the Masha Slamovich one?
Yeah, he's another great one.
Absolutely.
Masha Slamovich is insane for her GCW work.
Now, my next question is, you've mentioned watching a bunch of different women's wrestling, or a bunch of wrestling growing up. Having grown up in Puerto Rico, people call that, I think Corey Graves once said that it was the island that made hardcore famous. Are you a fan of like the deathmatch style matches, or is that something that you tend to steer away from because death matches can be a lot?
Yeah, I feel like it depends on what it is and probably the people involved. I feel like I cannot do it all the time. Like if I watch on a weekly basis, that would be too much for me. But if I watch it, let's say on a pay-per-view and it's something like it's special and it only happens so often, that I don't mind. Like the stuff we see from like AEW kind of thing, like I don't mind it because it doesn't happen often. But if we were to watch it like on a weekly basis, I wouldn't be able to like do that. Even as a horror fan, I wouldn't be able to see that much
So,
when it
so
comes to hardcore matches.
Tournament of Death really isn't your kind of field, no?
Mm.
Okay.
Probably not. I mean, didn't Nick Gage almost die during one of those?
Yes, he actually had to be air evac to a hospital.
Eesh.
So, yeah, no, Tournament of Death is something else. Warhawk Rambo asks, do you like Britt Baker? And I know we had a comment earlier, do you like Nyla Rose?
Yeah, I like especially what she's done in Ring of Honor with Athena. I want to see more of that. I feel like that's probably the best I've seen on Nyla so far in AEW. Brit I do like, but I feel like at that time when she was in AEW, I feel like we saw too much of her at that point. So I was like, I just wanted to get like a break from her because I've seen too much, and I wanted to get other women highlighted. And I feel like now that we've seen a lot of them getting a spotlight and she's been off of it, it's like now I want to see her get involved with these girls because a lot of them are newer and they were not there when she was, or they were there every so often and you already saw them. So I definitely want to see her get in the mix now when there's more ladies involved.
We Maddie and I had talked on a previous episode about who we think should beat Athena for the Ring of Honor Women's World Title, because there are some options, and Athena's been champion over 500 days at this point.
Queen
Who do you-
Aminata is my pick.
I like that pick. I really like that pick. What do you think, Astrid? Do you think Queen Aminata, or do you think there's somebody else that would make sense to beat Athena for that title?
Is that for me, when they did the pay-per-view, I wanted Billy to do it, and then when she lost, I kept thinking after that, it's Queen Aminata after I seen the way they've been building her up. So I was like, Billy was my first choice at that point, and then when she lost, it's like, okay, Queen Aminata went to number one, now Billy's number two. But I think definitely Queen Aminata just have, I feel like that kind of, it will help her like build her up a little bit more, and I feel like we could see more of her if she's champion. And I feel like after you've seen Athena as champion, you have to kind of, I don't want to say do the same, but you want to keep the champion be in a similar kind of wavelength as Athena to keep that championship like prestige going on, and you don't want to lose that. So I feel like they definitely can do that with her too.
Maddie, you're next.
All right. We got about 7 minutes here left of the show. Where do you want to see women's wrestling go in the future? And I feel like this could be a long answer, so take as much time as you want.
Well, I would say not only like just independent, like scene wise, but all around. I definitely would like to see more than one women's wrestling match on the card. Like at least two. And I'm not saying it like it has to be obligated, but it will be nice to see that kind of progress happening. So that's one of the things I would like to see. I definitely think of having that equal opportunity of like have the girls have equal time or like similar-ish time to the guys, and even like opportunities to be the main event. I mean, we saw it with like Rhea and Charlotte. It's like they were thinking we're not the main event, but we're definitely gonna show you what we should have been the main event during this. It's like if you think about it, we haven't had a women's main event I think in 2-3 years at this point of WrestleMania. So it's like I really want that to go back and have a little bit more like I want to say like respect, I guess if you want to say, to like the winner of the Rumble. Because for example, this year we had it with Bailey, who was like always I was like, oh, the winner gets to have the main event, and she never had the main event spot. And it's like I want to see the girls main eventing one night and the guys one time. I feel like it's just equal opportunity there. It's like if you have two Rumble winners, then have both nights for each one of them. It's like you highlight both.
Have the main event each night. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, and I definitely think of like having the girls having like similar time to the guys. If the guys have a main event that's 30 minutes, the girls can do at least 20 to 25. Don't give them a lot less time than what you give the guys if you're going to do that. And I would say another thing is that because I noticed that happening a lot with the Bloodline storylines, it's just whenever their storyline went on too long, they will cut the women's matches and get them less time. And it's like, I feel like if you're going to cut, you can cut a little bit from everybody and make it kind of equal in that sort of way, rather than just cutting the women's match or even canceling it because the guys took too long. And that sort of thing is something I would like to see change in that kind of culture. It's like it feels like kind of like the default when something goes on too long. Oh, we're gonna cut the women's match. Just so there's no other answer. And it's like, and they shouldn't be that way. And I definitely want to see that progress a little bit more. And I would say definitely a lot of not only from the fans but like in general of actually respecting the women because the women's are just they're entertaining you. They're putting the bodies on the line. I don't think they should be harassed in the way that some of them are get harassed or something. I would like to see change. It's like they're here for you. You pay the ticket to see them. Doesn't mean you get to do whatever you're doing it right in front. So I would say like respecting more of the ladies and just seeing it's like they want to do this. They want to entertain you. It's like they're doing this because not only is a dream of them, but they want to, they want you to enjoy it. It's like, and not only that, but having those kind of like any chance or anything like that that draws away from the matches that are happening. It's the sort of thing that I would like to see. Like, if I could stop it, I would, to be honest. But I will say definitely more than anything, like the theme will be like equal opportunity. If you're gonna give the guys something, try to give it to the girls too. I like that we're seeing it this year. Where like we have the King of the Ring and the Queen of the Ring. It's it's happening at the same time, and I like seeing that. And they're both getting like at least like kind of a decent amount of time. I want to say equal, but it's like sort of there. So I definitely want to see that happening more often. It's like if you're gonna do something to the guys, try to keep it with the girls. Like for example, with the Rumble, it's like if you're gonna have the guys main event one year, they have the girls main event the next one, and like kind of take turns in that sort of way. Because I feel like the girls have main evented maybe twice with the Rumble. I know one of them was the first year because it was obviously the introduction, but definitely more opportunities for them to like really show out. I feel like a lot of them are main event material, and they could be part of the main event, and then all of a sudden something else gets chosen. And I feel like they could definitely take turns on that on the pay-per-views too.
I think it's funny you mentioned the Rumble specifically, because as the Rumble aficionado of this channel, I think the women's Rumbles overall have been better than the men's Rumbles. So I fully
Since
agree.
they began.
Yeah, since they began, I think more often than not, the women's Rumble is better. So I think they absolutely should get that chance to main event a show and have a massive storyline. I would not have been mad if the women's Rumble would have main evented this year because I think Bayley's story was just as good to make the show.
Bayley and Io should have 100% main event in night one, and I will still die on that hill.
And that was a fantastic match too. All right, so last question: where can everybody who's watching the show find you on socials to watch all of your stuff?
You can find me on my YouTube channel, which is exactly like my name, Astrid Pizarro. And aside from that, you can find me, well, right there. That's my Twitter, my Blue Sky, and my Instagram. It's Astrid Pizarro 20. That's the only difference. Somebody took my name, and I can't do anything about it, unfortunately. But then you can find me on Tuesdays. I do the NXT Pro Show on OLE, so you can find us on our local establishment or OLE podcast. So we do a lot of different things on the channel there. So we do horror reviews, we do music reviews, we cover a lot of wrestling from WWE to Japanese wrestling. So there's always something that you're going to be able to find there. Video games. So it's something that we're growing there and bringing a lot of friends in there to, just to get involved and to be able to do shows with them. Because I don't get to do that often, so it's always nice when we get to do it.
I know you just said video games. What's your favorite video game before we go off air?
You're gonna judge me for my answer.
Will I?
I think you will. I don't play a lot of video games, and I started getting into it a little bit during the pandemic because of my Switch, and I started playing a lot of Animal Crossing. So that was my
That's
number one.
nothing to beat. We love Animal Crossing here.
I love Animal Crossing. I think that's my number one, and then I started playing. At that moment, I bought Crash, so I started playing Crash because I used to play that when I was younger. So that was another one that I really liked. And Among Us, because I used to play it on the Switch too, and I thought it would be easier to do, but it's very difficult compared to the computer, so I don't recommend it all the time. I haven't played in a while, though. I need to go back to it, but I haven't played. And the other one that I played with my sister just a little bit was Dreamlight Valley, but I haven't gone into it that much.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Astrid, for joining us. This was a lot of fun to interview you. We will be back next week with another interview. We're going to be doing a little series of them. So stay tuned to the channel for that. Again, Astrid, thank you very much for being on.
One of three.
One of three so far. We might have more. Who knows? So, again, thank you to Astrid. Thank you to Maddie Laws, as always, for joining us on the show. And thank you all for watching. We appreciate you, and we will see you next week here on the Greg Cherry Show. Have a good night. Don't be a jag. Enjoy Dynamite.
Follow the natural Astrid Pizarro.